Hello, brothers and sisters. This is your boy PC. Welcome back to another Based LDS video. Oh, I'm having a good time. How are you guys doing? Are you a little bored? Maybe the cold weather's got you trapped inside. You've watched everything there is to watch. Your scripture reading's all up to date and done. You're come follow me. You're killing it, knocking out of the park with you and your kids. There's nothing good to watch on Netflix because Netflix. What are you gonna do? Huh? What are you gonna do? Well, brothers and sisters, I have the latest great popcorn drama you could hope to watch. And it is the 118th Congress of the United States of America. The House of Representatives is your latest popcorn treat. You want to be excited about something, you want to be riveted, you want laughs, you want tears. The House has got it. The House has absolutely got it. And the Freedom Caucus is living rent free in the heads of the Democrats. And it is amazing to watch them fall apart. I'm not lying. I loosely follow what goes on in directly with the House and things. I'm trying to start to become more aware of what's going on in South Dakota where I live. But these last 2 days, the first and today the second, just chef's kiss as far as bring it on. And watching the devolution of the Democratic Party is glorious. And this episode today is brought to you by jars. If I'm going to pour something into something, I drink out of a jar because, I don't know, slightly redneck. It doesn't matter. Mason, Ball, it's all good. Go jars. So I want to, and I know I don't talk a lot about center throne politics because this is an LDS channel, but politics is important. Politics, they debate how you're living. They pass laws that would determine how you live your life. And lately they've gone into moralizing. The politicians have. I am watching Europe fall apart. England become a heap. The possibility that was South America is squandered, and the tragic history of Eastern Europe and Asia is just all too plain to see in the last 150 years. It is heartbreaking. And we're watching America, in my mind, the greatest nation in the history of the earth, crumble because of ideologies. And I bring this up because President Benson was one of the great stalwarts on socialism. He worked in the Truman administration. I believe he helped with the Marshall Air Plan, airlift, whatever they called it. He was Department of Agriculture, if I remember right. And he saw firsthand what socialism did to the countries that was under the socialistic thumb. And I know socialism's not a dirty word. They're teaching kids nowadays that it's great, it's acceptable. When you're watching Black Lives Matter march now because of the Tyree Nichols issue, all tragic as that is a tragedy. But you look at their signs, and it's socialism and the end of capitalism is what will change everything and somehow bring about this great harmony. But the House the last 3 days has debated socialism resolutions on adopting rules on socialism, on saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and the removal of Ilhan Omar. Now, they'd already removed Swalwell and Schiff from intelligence communities. And good, because those guys have proven they can't be trusted. especially Schiff, directly lying to the American people. I mean, that's just, we saw that every day for 3 years when he's on CNN saying, I have seen the files and America will know, and nothing ever came out. Mueller did nothing. There's nothing to substantiate any of Schiff's claims. And I'm not saying Trump's a genius or Trump's the best guy, but he was not the boogeyman they made him out to be. And so I just want to give you some clips of what they're doing on the floor and these mask-off moments with the Democratic elites that are running the country. I will include the links, the YouTube links for these 3 debates that took place on the House floor. I don't know who was involved in socialism. It may have just been the Financial Services Committee. I'm not sure. But with the removal of Ilhan Omar, it was the entire House. And then with the Pledge of Allegiance, it was the House Judiciary Committee. And it's good stuff. You really get to see what they're like in Congress and why we need some real change. And then as you watch these, I want you to think about the fact that Mitch, why can't I remember his last name? But the Republican minority leader in the Senate recently removed people who stood in the way of him becoming the minority leader from their Senate committees, Mike Lee and I can't remember the other gentleman, because he's mad that they stood in the way. And I wish there would have been some more collective spying in the Senate, because we got to remember that Mitch, Turtle Man himself, stood in the way of Republicans gaining more seats. Blake Masters should have won, but they did not fund him. And he's not the best candidate, but seriously, Pennsylvania Dr. Oz should have won. Instead, they elected the guy who had a stroke months before and can barely speak. Was it Feynman? I can't remember his name. Oh, it hurts my head. So there's problems in the Republican committee. Do not get me wrong. But I like what the House is doing. And I know you need the House and the Senate to stand up and do things. The House is alone. They will not do a lot. But I hope we see that the things they're proponents for, the things they debate for, are good for America and Americans. I won't agree with everything they have to say, but they've generally got it right. So let's come up to the first one on the denunciation of socialism. And we're going to start off, these are just small sound clips. The first one is a Republican congresswoman. I do not remember her name. Let's maybe back up a second here. Oh, there's Wasserman Schultz leaving. And here we go. So this is the why we should denounce socialism. And then you will see Maxine Waters protest against. So here we go. Just stick with me for a couple minutes.
From California has 15 quarter.
All right. This time I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Kim.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman McHenry, and I would thank you for yielding your time. I rise in strong support of House Concurrent Resolution 9 to denounce the atrocities perpetuated by socialism across the world. If you want to see the difference between socialism and freedom, take a look at North Korea at night versus South Korea. As an immigrant who grew up in South Korea during the aftermath of Korean War, I know firsthand the horror, the destruction that socialism has brought to millions of families in the Korean Peninsula under the evil regime of Kim Dynasty, from Kim Il-sung to Kim Jong-il to now Kim Jong-un. Socialism divided my family and friends between North and South. My mother-in-law, for example, she crossed over DMZ and back multiple times to rescue loved ones from the tyrannical North Korean regime, and tens of thousands of war-torn families remain separated to this day. Meanwhile, famines and the daily threats of a nuclear war in East Asia persist. Although I was just a young girl, I remember the hope embodied by those brave soldiers who defended the freedoms of a country they never knew and a people they never met. It is because of them that I stand before you today as one of the first Korean American women to serve in Congress. The United States must continue to stand as a beacon of freedom, hope, and opportunity for the world. I urge my colleagues from both sides of the aisle to join us to say no to socialism, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina reserves, and the gentlewoman from California is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The gentlelady from California just mentioned North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And let me tell you what Trump said. He said, Kim wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love. Now I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Ledger.
So, denounce socialism. Trump. That's their answer. That's their answer. Now, as they're debating socialism, the link here is for an hour-long video, and all of these videos are 3 hours. They're an hour each, 3 hours. So, but I please go on, watch these videos. When they debate socialism, and they come back to, well, what about Trump? What about Trump? Well, okay, so if you don't want to denounce socialism, how about denouncing Stalin, Lenin, Mao, Xi, Un, all these guys, Pol Pot? And the Democrats, well, no, and this is a waste of time. And also, by the way, what about Trump? What about Trump? What about Trump? Now I'm going to remind you all. 2015, Trump gets elected. He's not even in office. And the Democrats are screaming bloody murder because Trump's going to get us into a war. I remember H.W. Bush. I remember Clinton. I remember Bush and Obama kowtowing to North Korea. We gave them so much money to not produce nukes, to stay out of the nuclear program. We gave them money to fund their country so that they could, and they broke their promises at every turn. No one held them accountable. No one stood up. Trump got elected. We're going to have a war. He's going to get us all killed. World War III. Well, look at how, remember the doomsday clock? Trump didn't put us under this 90 seconds to doomsday on the clock, which is junk, by the way. But still, it's a worth mentioning kind of moment. Trump went to Korea, met with Jong-un, de-escalated tensions. And if you remember right, in what I thought was a funny moment, literally jumped from South to North Korea, this magic line, and then back. You could see you could see like Jong-un like what just happened, huh? These dictators, they want respect. They want to feel powerful. Trump threatened him. Trump let him know who was boss, but then showed a little bit of respect, just as a leader. And that put the foot in the door to establishing relations. And now we're right back to the old game plan that was failing under Biden. Just, that's how it is. We're back under that same failed game plan. And Trump, not a perfect president. And I don't think he was robbed of an election. I think 4 years of impeachment, 5 years of negative press, he was never going to win. And COVID absolutely submarined what happened to him. I think actually that's what caused the loss is COVID. That shutdown was horrific. But they come back to Trump. Well, Trump. So, but that's all they have on socialism. They're worried that if we denounce socialism. They'll do away with Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, VA benefits. I'm a veteran. I do not like or trust the VA. Now, do not get me wrong. I got here to South Dakota, and I made the same VA jokes that all of the vets make down in Colorado, Arizona, throughout the United States. And the VA here is run very differently. It is in order. It is a working machine, but it is not functional in most of the United States. You remember those years ago under Obama, the death lines. People would show up and just sit in the halls, and people were dying in the halls waiting to be seen. Or they'd be seen and they're scheduled for a surgery and they have to wait and they're getting sicker and they're dying. That same socialized healthcare is in Canada, Great Britain. So every time they talk about socialized healthcare, I'm like, VA. Look no further than the VA to see how the United States would run your healthcare. It can be run well, but South Dakota is such a small population. I don't know that what they do in South Dakota would work in California, Colorado, some of the more populous states with larger veterans bases. Population base, veteran population base. It'd be interesting to see, but I remember reading the autobiography of Omar M. Bradley. And was it Bradley? Yeah, Bradley. Bradley, who was one of the assistant generals to Eisenhower. And Bradley was tasked with reorganizing the VA, and he was shocked and horrified by what he saw. And that was in the 40s and 50s. And he overhauled it and he got it good, but nobody took care of it since then. And everyone acknowledges it's a mess, but they don't do anything because it's a nice political bargaining tool to run on veterans. But look at what Canada's doing with the MAID. What is it? Medically assisted something. It's the suicide program. They're boasting about their. Are you depressed? Well, you can see a therapist, or we can just help you end your life. There was a Paralympian, just a little bit depressed, and they're like, they offered to kill me. This is not what they were looking for. They were looking for some therapy, for someone to talk to. And Canada came back with, we want to die. Great Britain, capitalist country, but a socialized healthcare program. Not Great Britain, England. England lives or dies by the NHS, National Healthcare System. They bludgeon the people with, if you don't give us more money, if we can't boost your taxes, the NHS is going to crumble. They hold the people hostage over NHS. It is heartbreaking to watch. All right, let's move on real quick to the Pledge of Allegiance. Though this was an amendment proposed by Matt Gaetz to have them do the Pledge of Allegiance to start off every Judiciary Committee meeting.
Chairman, here on the august Judiciary Committee, we are charged with vindicating the constitutional rights of our fellow Americans, and our Pledge of Allegiance is a national symbol of pride and unity. And it was a great honor to be able to invite one of my constituents this morning to offer the Pledge of Allegiance. And so my amendment gives the committee the opportunity to begin each of its meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. It gives our members the ability to invite inspirational constituents to be able to share and lead in the Pledge of Allegiance. I offered this amendment to the Judiciary Rules 2 years ago, and it was defeated, and I'm very optimistic that we'll have a different outcome today. That's the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman for his amendment.
Now, let me say this. I like this amendment. I start off the school system here in Colorado, or South Dakota, in Custer, where I'm at. They start off every morning with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm not going to say everyone's exuberant, but no one sits, no one kneels, no one does anything. They get up, they say their pledge, and they go about their day, and nobody complains. They teach civics and government and history, local and national. This school system does a really good job rounding out education in those ways. I like it. I wish they taught a Western civilization class, but hey, funding, time, I get it. And limited teachers, like, so yeah. But I like this amendment. Now, we're going to skip forward to a congressman who's going to give his reason why not to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I hope you find this interesting. Here we go.
That the insurrection never did happen, and I regret participating in the pledge every day. It may be offered, but you're not there. It has the charge to do that the insurrection never did happen, and I regret the fact that many members of this committee voted against certifying the election results based on the big lie, and they have continued to promote the big lie and undermine public confidence in our government. And so for us to, amidst these folks who supported the insurrection, to be forced to pledge allegiance to the flag, which should be something that none of us have any problem with, but it's just a matter of, it's ironic that this committee, the ones that would not comply with congressionally issued subpoenas, disrespected the rule of law, would now insist that each and every one of us on each and every hearing date come before this committee and pledge allegiance to the flag. I support the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's very ironic, and I just simply wanted to point that out, and with that I yield back.
Will the gentleman-
I'll yield to the gentleman from...
So I support the Pledge of Allegiance, but I find it ironic, and it's... I find it galling that they're going to say that they're being held hostage, basically, by this committee who supported an insurrection, who purported and supported the big lie, you know, the one that the election was stolen from Trump in 2020. These are the same people who said the election was stolen from Hillary Clinton by the Russians. I mean, 4 years. One of the impeachments was in collusion, Russian collusion, interference in the elections. You heard nothing but that. Obama, elections are secure. Trump wins. Hold on a minute. Maybe not. Mind blown. Mind blown at the hypocrisy of these people. And you see, it comes back to, well, Trump. Don't care about your Trump. I do want you debating. I do want you to do what you do in the Judiciary Committee and all these other committees, but you should be pledging allegiance because you're un-American. That's why they don't want to do it. They want to grandstand and put it on these moral high grounds that do not exist. It's moral sand. What do they call it? Moral quicksand is what they're arguing from, and not a high ground. And so I'm appalled. And you go back, and it keeps coming back to, well, what about Trump this? Well, what about all these arguments? And again, there are going to be links. Watch these if you're interested. And I hope you are. I hope you go back and see what they talk about. And it always comes back to Trump. I support the pledge, but this is un-American. I support the pledge, but this is un-American. What's un-American about the Pledge of Allegiance? 30 seconds at the start of your committee meeting. And earlier, and I apologize for losing my place there, but earlier they pointed out that Nadler's like, we say a Pledge of Allegiance to start every session of the House. Every day they meet, they do the Pledge of Allegiance. So he finds it, a waste of time to do it at the start then of their committee meetings. And then somebody points out, yeah, well, you don't always make the start of the House opening. So they'll show to their meeting, but they won't show when they gather as a body before they break into their committees. And he's like, I object. I do too make it to these. And it's amazing They do not want to be seen as un-American, even while they're proposing un-American activities. And again, Pledge of Allegiance may be a small thing, but it's a thing. All right, so now let's jump to H.R. 76, the resolution to remove Ilhan Omar. Now, before this happens, I'm going to say this. They're going to call Republicans hypocrites. They're going to call this anything you want to be associated. Any of those terms they like to throw out. They threw Marjorie Taylor Greene off of all committee assignments in the last Congress because of posts she made before she was even elected. And you're going to see Steny Hoyer here with a campaign ad. And he's going to decry it as violence. And yet it's just a campaign ad that is red meat for Republicans and conservatives. And I'm going to play a series of clips from the Democrats and their opposition to Ilhan Omar. And I want to see if you pick up on the common theme. I'm not going to play why they're electing her or removing her, because the stated reason is anti-Semitic comments. And I want to make something clear. She serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee. They're not removing her from every committee assignment, and they're not opening other committees. They're not denying other committees to her. But they're saying, you're not serving here. Kind of like they did with Swalwell and Schiff on intelligence. And now Gates, Freedom Caucus, argues back and says, not really Swalwell. Swalwell didn't deserve to have what happened to him because the whole Chinese spy thing happened before he was in Congress, I guess. And he argues that for Ilhan Omar, maybe it's not the best look because it's kind of a denunciation of free speech. And Tim Pool says it's not revenge, it's retribution. And I'm going to agree. This is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't necessarily like it, but it's reminding Democrats, hey, you want to play this way? We'll play this way too. And there's a part of that I like because I'm a brawler. You slap me, I'm going to punch you back. I'm not going to slap you back. And so, and I know, turn the other cheek, but the Democrats don't respect turning the other cheek. They are abhorrently against it. They find it horrific. So let's move on to Steny Hoyer.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to make the point. The two individuals that we removed from committees were not removed for their speech. They were removed because they made threats against other members. This one was made before the representative came. Mr. Gosar's, of course, was made during. But both were removed because of the threat they posed to three of our colleagues. Not because of their speech, but because of their threat. With an AK-47 or AR-15, I'm not sure which that gun is. And promoting themselves as the biggest nightmare to three of our colleagues. And Mr. Gosar portraying the murder of one of our colleagues. There is no equivalency here. We believe in free speech, however hateful that speech is. And I will tell you, I take a back seat to no one in this chamber to my support of Israel and against anti-Semitism. To no one.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Second.
Thank you.
But the equivalency that has been made here is absolutely without merit. And you go down a terrible road. I do not agree with the statements that were made. I oppose them. I said on this floor that I opposed them. But by golly, there are a whole lot of your folks over there that I disagree with vehemently, who rationalized insurrection and would be a reason for me to vote for having them off a committee. But that's not how we operate.
So I'm going to pause this right there for just a minute and point out Marjorie Taylor Greene is not threatening to kill these people on this board. And I'm going to point out there are 3 squad members, Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, and Talib. And you're going to hear from 2 of these people in this clip. And you're going to hear what they have to say. But when he's talking about this is inexcusable and Republicans do nothing, Democrats kicked Marjorie Taylor Greene off for past comments before she was elected. And Steve King, Iowa, I forgot about this, did make some stupid comments. The Republicans themselves took it upon them to remove him from all committees. And then I believe we got him voted out. So to me, the whole, we recognize bad speech, we stood up, we held him accountable. The Republicans did, conservatives did. And here's this man complaining that Republicans never do that. And again, it's not that she can't serve on any other committee, just not foreign affairs. Just like Schiff and Swalwell can serve on other committees, just not intelligence. All right, we're going to skip forward here to AOC. And then I'm just basically going to let it run for about 5 minutes, so bear with me.
New York, Representative Ocasio-Cortez.
All right, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Now, as a fellow New Yorker, I think one of the things that we should talk about here.
I'm going to say this. Behind her, I don't know who the gentleman is, but the lady is Cori Bush. She'll speak later, but watch her reaction while AOC is speaking. She's almost worth the price of admission just to watch her react as well, because she is a true believer, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, a true believer. Here we go.
Here is also one of the disgusting legacies after 9/11 has been the targeting and racism against Muslim Americans throughout the United States of America, and this is an extension of that legacy. Consistency, there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body. I had a member of the Republican caucus threaten my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks when you have a member of the Republican caucus who has talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes, and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology when my life was threatened. Thank you.
She's angry?
The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Reserve at this time, Madam Speaker.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Representative Presley.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to the rhetoric and resolution from across the aisle, our colleagues who seek to make history for all the wrong reasons. I rise on behalf of every little girl who sees herself in the leadership of Congresswoman Omar. She is a mother, daughter, refugee, advocate, skilled policymaker, a duly and decisively elected third-term member to the U.S. House of Representatives. I have spent time in the Minnesota 5th. I have seen her pull her community through grief and loss. I have seen her stand arm in arm on picket lines with our educators and our nurses. I have seen her pass historic legislation to feed our babies in our schools. She has built coalitions, given constituents in crisis a sense of agency, and centered to most marginalized in word and deed. No matter how embattled, no matter how racially profiled, no matter how targeted, she has pressed on for peace over militarization, human rights at home and abroad, a world where an education is a fundamental right, where gender equity is recognized. I want to live in that world. Let me make it plain.
The gentlewoman's time is expired.
Ilhan Omar is right where she belongs.
The gentlewoman's time is expired.
Is needed on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Her clarity, conviction,
the gentlewoman's time is expired and she is no longer recognized. The gentleman from
Some
Mississippi.
people are above the rules.
Madam Speaker, at this time I yield 1 minute to my friend from the great state of Florida, Mr. Jimenez.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anti-Semitism.
All right, we're going to fast forward here to Cori Bush. I forgot she was not the next one because the Republicans keep banking their time to save for later. And the Democrats use it at every opportunity, which is fine. You know, you do what you do. But this lets the Republicans have all the speaking at the end, which is, it's just a way of doing it. It's just a way of strategy. That's fine. So nothing wrong here with the system.
Bush.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
St. Louis and I rise in support of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. I've been to her district. I've spoken with her constituents. We visited marginalized communities globally together. This institution is better because of her leadership, and the Foreign Affairs Committee benefits from her perspective. So let's talk about what's really happening. Republicans are waging a blatantly Islamophobic and racist attack on Congresswoman Omar. And I've said it before, I will say it again. The white supremacy happening is unbelievable. This is despicable. It is Congresswoman Omar who has been harassed at her job for simply existing as a Muslim woman in Congress. It is she who has been attacked by a member of this body, ridiculing her as a potential terrorist for simply existing as a Muslim woman in this Congress. So rather than bring an actual accountability, any accountability to Congress, they bring this offensive resolution to the floor. This is just a bunch of racist gaslighting. We all know it. Vote no.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
How much time do we have left?
10 1/4 minutes.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Washington State, Representative Jayapal.
And the representative is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, this is a revenge resolution that seeks to remove Representative Ilhan Omar's strong and necessary voice from the Foreign Affairs Committee. It is an attempt to silence her simply because you do not agree with her views and you cannot begin to understand her lived experience. Her lived experience as a war survivor, as a refugee, as somebody who brings an experience to this body that you're not even trying to understand. We have previously voted in a bipartisan manner to remove individuals from their committee assignments because of their violent actions that endangered the safety of their colleagues. That is not what today is about. Today is about revenge. It is also about the fact that Republicans want to distract the American people from the fact that they have absolutely no legislation to bring to the floor that is actually about helping the American people with their costs, with dealing with inflation. You don't have any solutions, so you're trying to distract with these inane,
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
Absurd, absolutely absurd resolutions. Vote no.
Remind members to direct their remarks to the chair, and the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
I reserve as well at this time.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Representative Schiff.
And the gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this resolution. First, as to the false pretext, 2 members of the Republican conference were removed from committees for inciting violence, encouraging violence against their colleagues. There is nothing at all at issue like that here. You want to introduce a resolution to condemn someone for inciting violence against their colleagues or against people here in Congress? Introduce a resolution against Donald J. Trump. No one has incited more violence against this chamber than Donald Trump. Now, let me talk about anti-Semitism. Do not insult our intelligence by suggesting this is about anti-Semitism. You want to introduce a resolution against someone guilty of anti-Semitism? Introduce a resolution against someone dining with anti-Semites, someone dining with white nationalists. Members of your conference who are speaking at white nationalist rallies, introduce a resolution against Donald J. Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, and others, but do not
The gentleman's time has
insult our
expired.
intelligence by saying this is about anti-Semitism.
The gentleman's time
Vote
has
no on this
expired.
resolution.
Okay, not gonna lie. There's a part of me that wishes they would have that Gates's nomination for Trump to be Speaker of the House would have gone through. I would just love to see just Trump come through with his great Cheeto hand, the orange Cheeto hand, kind of like the meme of Batman smacking Robin. No. Can you, Democrats everywhere? No. And in fact, there's part of that here when they do pass the. Maybe I'll see if I play it. I don't know if it's on here or not, but.
And from Michigan, Representative Tlaib.
The gentlewoman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Desperation. So desperate to distract the American people from their total inability to govern. The GOP is now doing what it is best at, weaponizing hate against a black, beautiful Muslim woman. Congresswoman Omar's lived experience as a refugee and a child of survivor of war should be welcomed on this committee. It is needed. When you can't pass any bills that actually improve the people's lives, they turn Congress into a place of fear-mongering hate. It is so painful to watch. How ironic that the so-called lovers of personal freedom are now moving to censor Congresswoman Omar in the same week they introduced a bill to ban federal employees from engaging in censorship. Where are the free speech warriors today? The hypocrisy is obvious to the American people. You are showing who you all are, really.
The gentlewoman's time has
Omar
expired.
will not be silenced.
The gentlewoman's time has
to
expired.
Congressman Omar, I am
gentlewoman's
so
time
sorry,
has
sis,
expired.
that our country is failing you today through this chamber. You belong
The
in
gentlewoman
that
is no
committee.
longer recognized, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
All right, there it was. And it's not on here. I just looked. But when they do the votes, they take the vote, and they're eyeing and naying for her removal, and the aye passes. There's that meme of all the nut job lunatic leftists when Trump was president, and remember they had that day of grieving and emotional outlet. Let the heavens hear your cry. And there's those, the meme of all these people, and the House, the left breaks out in no, and they're shrieking and they're howling, and I'm sorry, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. You have brought this on yourself. But did you catch the common theme? If you don't agree with us and you're pushing for this to happen, you're an ist and a phobe. If you push for any of this to happen, you were an Islamophobe, a racist, misogynist because you're doing this to a woman. You're a racist because she's black, and you're an Islamophobe because of her religion. There was some talk over free speech, and I think that I do think there's some merit to that argument. But I really, when you look at what she said, and she's like, well, I didn't know it was I didn't know it was, but it's so deeply ingrained in her head. She doesn't know what she's saying, possibly. But is that then the person you want on the Foreign Affairs Committee? Someone who equivocates that Israel and the U.S. are worse than Hamas and the Taliban? Is that what you want on your Foreign Affairs Committee? I don't. And yes, I know there's not going to be a lot of laws passed generated from the House because the Senate and President Joe Biden are in the way. And frickin' Turtle Mitch is to blame for the Senate. And that losers like Thune, South Dakota, and Romney, Utah, are for that crap. They're for more of the same. And I hope, brothers and sisters, you're paying attention to what's going on in the House. And you see, they're not perfect. I'm not going to agree with everything they've done so far. And a lot of it is grandstanding because it is only going to go so far, but it's necessary to go so far. Because they're letting people know what they want. They're stating their positions ideologically and practically to the people. And a lot more people are going to see we need these kinds of people in office. And I'm going to point out this last election, yeah, the red wave didn't appear. Yeah, Mitch nuked the Senate from inside to make sure that he didn't want to lose power, so he made sure that anyone who would stand against him as Republican would lose. That's the Rhino Con at work. That's a secret combination at work, where they're looking for their own gain and their own power. That's why I'm going to show videos and talk on things like this after every now and then, because it matters. Because these are the secret combinations and they're out there in the open. We can talk about the WEF all we want, but what about the fact it's just inside the Gibbs, the Gib me? What about those? We need to stand up and say no. And as American people, we need to do better next time. And we need to hold these people accountable. Mitch has got to go. Romney's got to go. Thune, I don't know. I don't know enough about him yet. I'm learning. But he supported McConnell. McConnell. He supported McConnell. No, I can't abide that. So, brothers and sisters, I hope you watched something here, and I hope that you saw the common thread all the Democrats have. When there's they could not argue intelligently on why to keep her there. It was, the Republicans are doing this because they're hateful. And I'm going to say this. I am a Republican, barely. I'm a conservative. That's where my values lie, is conservatism. We compromise. The left does not. They have no interest in debate and compromise. They want to bully and cajole and muscle their way into things, and we have to stand up. President Benson was right, and he warned us. And successive prophets and apostles since then have done the same thing, but not as vocally, but they've done the same thing. There is no freedom to act or react. All you do is obey. That's it for this video. Sorry if it went long, but thank you. Have a good night. And I hope this gives you some food for thought. And I will comment back. Let me know where I'm wrong. Let me know where you agree. Let me know what you think of what happened here, what you saw. And I hope you watch these videos in their entirety, because there's a lot to learn and see. There is. You will see a difference between the Republican argument and the Democrat argument. And it all comes down to Trump, insurrectionists, white supremacy for the left. And for the right, it's capitalism raising all boats float, everybody improves, rich and poor, everybody's life gets better, freedom, liberty, the right to live your life as you want to. So that's all for now. Thank you. Have a good night. Peace out.